Let me ask you a question. You ever cleaned up your diet and started working out and just felt great for a few weeks and then watched it all fall apart? Not slowly, I mean, it basically just come down crashing. And somehow you ended up worse than you were when you first started. More weight, less motivation, deeper in the hole. That's not a failure of willpower. That's a spiritual principle playing out in your body. And Jesus actually talked about it 2,000 years ago in one of his parables. In Matthew chapter 12, Jesus tells a story about what happens when a person is set free from something bad but never fills that empty space with anything good. And his context in the story is about when essentially someone is freed from an evil spirit. He says when an unclean spirit leaves a person, it wanders around looking for rest, but the spirit doesn't find any rest. So it says, I'm going to go back to my house, which is that guy he came out of recently. And when it gets there, it finds the house empty, swept clean, and put in order. So it goes out, grabs 7 spirits worse than itself, and moves back in. And the last state of that person is worse than the first state. So on the surface, that's a story about spiritual warfare. And it is, but I want you to hear what Jesus is really saying, because it applies directly to your health, your habits, and the life you're trying to build. The man in the story got free. The demons left. The house got cleaned up, and that's great news. But here's the problem. The house was empty. It was swept. It was in order, but nobody moved in. There was no occupant, no new presence, no new identity filling that space. And because it was empty, the old thing came back with reinforcements. And here's how that plays out in your life. If you decide you're done eating garbage, or you throw out the junk food, you stop going through the drive-thru, you start hitting the gym, you drink less, and for a while, it works. The house looks clean. But if all you've done is remove the bad without truly replacing it with something real, something rooted, something that really defines who you are now as a person, then you're left the house empty. An empty house doesn't stay empty. The old habits will come knocking. And when they do, they won't come alone. They'll bring stress eating. They'll bring the voice that says, you were never cut out for this. They'll bring comparison, shame, and the lie that tells you that you just might not be cut out for this at all, and you've already blown it. And just like Jesus said, your last state becomes worse than your first. So what's the answer? The answer is not just to stop doing the wrong things. The answer is to truly become rooted in an identity shift with full resolve. Become someone new. You don't just quit eating poorly. You become a person who fuels their body with intention. You don't just stop being lazy. You become a person who moves because they understand their body as a temple and a gift, and you have a responsibility to steward it well. You don't just remove the bad habits, you build an identity around the good ones. That's what it means to fill the house. When that house is occupied, then you replace the emptiness with purpose, with discipline that comes from identity, with a deep settled belief in who you are. The old stuff can show up at the door all at once. There's just no room. The house is full. Now you're the one in the social situations making the healthy decisions and making those normal decisions, the temptations presented to you, the weird or odd option. And this isn't just my coaching philosophy. This is a biblical principle, obviously. Jesus wasn't just giving a theology lesson. He was describing how transformation actually works. Removal without replacement is temporary. Cleaning up without filling up is an invitation for the old life to come back stronger. Now here's one more layer that I don't want you to miss, that I almost missed. At the end of that passage, Jesus says, so shall it also be with the wicked of this generation. And he's talking about the nation of Israel in his time. They cleaned the house, they got rid of the old idolatry, they followed the rules, and they looked good on the outside, but they were empty on the inside. They had the form of religion without the substance. And Jesus warned them, that emptiness will cost you everything. That's a warning for us too. You can look the part, you can have the gym membership, the meal prep, the containers, the right clothes, but if there's nothing real on the inside, no conviction, no identity shift, no actual transformation of who you believe you are, it's just an empty, swept house, and it won't hold. So here's what I'm telling you. Don't just clean up, fill up. Don't just stop the bad habits. Start becoming the person who doesn't need them in the first place. Build something in that space. Put a new identity in that house. Decide who you are, not just who you're trying to be. Because an empty house doesn't stay clean for long. But a full one has no room for what used to be there. So let's build that.